Good evening and welcome to the Sleepless Library, a quiet space where meaningful ideas and timeless books unfold in soft tones to help you relax, reflect and drift gently into sleep. Tonight, we're exploring 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson, a thoughtful and grounding guide to navigating chaos. Before you settle in, please consider liking the video and subscribing. And if there's a book you'd love to hear next, feel free to share it in the comments. Now find a comfortable position, let the noise of the day begin to fade, and join us for tonight's quiet journey. Rule 1. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. In the natural world, life is a constant struggle for territory, dominance and survival. From the lowliest lobster to the most advanced human, hierarchy is deeply embedded into the fabric of existence. And in that hierarchy, posture matters. Standing tall signals strength, confidence and readiness. Slouching signals the opposite: defeat, vulnerability and retreat. Among lobsters, dominance is established through ritualized displays and, when necessary, combat. A victorious lobster changes not just in behavior, but biochemically. Serotonin levels rise, enhancing posture and increasing the chance of further success. Meanwhile, the loser shrinks back, both physically and psychologically. It's a feedback loop. Success leads to more success, while defeat reinforces further retreat. This pattern isn't exclusive to crustaceans. It applies to birds, mammals, and yes, to people. Social hierarchies have existed for hundreds of millions of years, and we are built to navigate them. In humans, body language doesn't just reflect internal states, it helps create them. A person who physically straightens up, who meets the world with a sense of uprightness and purpose, triggers subtle shifts in their own brain chemistry. Confidence grows. Others respond more positively. A new loop begins, one that spirals upward rather than down. Daily life is an ongoing dance between chaos and order. Order is where things are familiar, predictable, and safe. It's the structure of routine, tradition, and social agreement. Chaos is the unknown, the place of surprise, disruption, and the collapse of what once felt solid. The line between the two is thin, and it's one we walk every day, whether we realize it or not. A missed bus, an unexpected job loss, or a betrayal by someone trusted. Each can send a person tumbling into uncertainty. Staying balanced at that edge requires more than intellect. It requires embodiment. The body speaks a language older than words, and it shapes how the world responds. A slumped figure is more likely to be ignored or dismissed. A person who carries themselves with dignity is more likely to be seen, heard, and respected. But the importance of posture goes deeper than social signalling. It's about responsibility. To stand upright is to accept the burden of being, to acknowledge the weight of suffering, uncertainty, and potential that life inevitably brings. It's to face the chaos, not shrink from it. To act, even when action feels difficult. To bear one's suffering without resentment, and to aim for the good, even in the face of hardship. No one escapes the hierarchy. No one escapes suffering. But we can choose how we carry ourselves through it. The difference between curling inward in defeat and rising up with purpose can reshape a life. The effects are not just internal. Others notice. They respond in kind. And as that new pattern repeats, the world begins to look and feel different. Choosing to stand tall is not arrogance. It is not a shallow performance. It's a commitment to participating in life fully, to acknowledging one's worth, and to acting in a way that earns respect, both from others and from oneself. That single act becomes a foundation for everything that follows. The smallest change in posture can become the seed of transformation. Just as defeat can lead to more defeat, confidence can create its own momentum. To rise up is to signal readiness, to engage, to learn, to grow. Even when things fall apart, and they inevitably will, one can meet the moment with the strength of someone who refuses to crumble. In a world full of uncertainty and complexity, there's power in the simple things, in standing tall, in facing forward, in letting the body carry a message the mind sometimes forgets. You belong here. You have a role to play, and though life is difficult, you're not without agency. You can act, and your actions matter. So straighten your spine, set your shoulders back, look the world in the eye. The path forward is not without danger, but neither are you. Rule 2, treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. People often extend care, patience, and compassion to others far more readily than they offer those same things to themselves. When a beloved pet falls ill, most don't hesitate to get treatment, administer medication, and provide comfort. Yet when facing their own needs, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, many falter. They skip medication, ignore signs of distress, neglect what they know would help. Why? At the heart of this dilemma is a quietly persistent idea that we're somehow unworthy of care. Flawed, broken, or undeserving, we sideline our own well-being, not out of humility, but often from a deep, unspoken self-disgust. We may not even recognize this as it happens, but the results are clear. We let ourselves down in ways we'd never tolerate for others. But what if we reversed the script? What if we took seriously the responsibility of looking after ourselves, not as a self-indulgent act, but as a moral obligation? Not because we want to be pampered, but because we have duties, roles, and people who depend on us. What if, like a good caretaker, we made our well-being a non-negotiable part of being a responsible human being? Embedded in ancient stories is a framework for this understanding. The earliest chapters of Genesis depict a world moving from chaos to order, from formlessness to structure. The human being is not a passive observer in this unfolding. Instead, humans are called to participate, to bring order, to name, to tend. But such work demands strength, and strength requires care. Chaos and order are twin elements of life. Too much chaos and things fall apart. Too much order and growth becomes impossible. To live well is to walk the edge between them, to remain flexible yet stable. That balance begins within. A person who doesn't care for themselves becomes unstable, reactive, overwhelmed. Slowly, the ability to help others erodes too. There is a deeper implication here. Your existence matters, not because you're perfect, but because you are a bearer of potential. Because you are, in some sense, the thing standing between disorder and repair. Your health, clarity, and stability are not just personal concerns. They ripple outward, shaping your relationships, your work, your capacity to be useful. To treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping is to speak truthfully to yourself, to stop lying about what you need or pretending that you can carry on indefinitely without support. It means listening, really listening, to the signals your body and emotions are sending. Not every whim should be indulged, but legitimate needs must not be ignored. It's easy to fall into cycles of self-betrayal, to make promises you don't keep, to set goals and abandon them, to treat your future self as someone disposable. But such patterns damage more than motivation. They corrode trust, and the first trust to be broken is always with yourself. Over time, the internal voice grows quieter, the spirit heavier. Life becomes a reaction, not a response. But the path back is not mysterious. It begins with one small act of care, one choice to behave toward yourself as you would toward a loved one in need. That might mean setting boundaries, getting rest, saying no, speaking up, or simply not letting yourself drift any further into isolation, resentment, or apathy. This isn't about narcissism or endless self-focus. It's about integrity. It's about making yourself into someone trustworthy, someone others can rely on because you first learned to rely on yourself. It's about accepting that your life is not disposable and therefore must be lived with a seriousness that honours its value. You're not just a tool to be used up. You're not just a problem to be managed. You're a being of tremendous potential, and that potential is your responsibility. Tending to it is not weakness. It's wisdom. So stop waiting for someone else to come fix everything. Start by treating yourself like someone worth helping. Because you are. Rule 3. Make friends with the people who want the best for you. Friendship is one of the most powerful forces in a person's life, and one of the most underestimated. People often surround themselves with companions by accident, circumstance, or habit, without fully considering the effect those relationships have on their growth or stability. But the truth is simple. The people closest to you shape you. They either lift you up or pull you down, and over time, their influence becomes your environment. Not all friends are equal. Some support you in your efforts to grow, make better choices, and face life's difficulties honestly. Others subtly encourage stagnation, cynicism, or chaos. One kind brings order, the other brings confusion. One urges you to take responsibility, the other provides an escape. The difference is not always obvious at first, but it always matters. There's a trap in believing that loyalty means sticking with people no matter what, even when they drag you into repeated cycles of suffering, addiction, or self-destruction. While compassion matters, there's a crucial distinction between helping someone and enabling them. Not everyone who asks for support actually wants to change. Some simply want company in their misery. People can get stuck in patterns, unhealthy friendships, toxic romances, dead-end lives, because they fear being alone more than they fear staying hurt. It's not easy to walk away from someone you've known for years. It's harder still to admit that a connection is doing more harm than good. But a relationship built on shared failure, mutual resentment, or codependency isn't real support. It's just another prison. True friends don't want to see you fail. They don't secretly cheer when you make bad decisions, or act offended when you aim higher. Real allies celebrate your victories, not because they benefit, but because they care. And when you fall short, they don't gloat or disappear. They help you stand back up. They remind you who you are and what you can be. But this kind of friendship comes with a price. You must want the best for yourself too. You can't expect to attract high-quality people while living in avoidance, bitterness, or apathy, like attracts like. If you want friends who challenge you, support you, and bring out your better nature, you have to become someone who does the same. That means being honest. It means letting go of the romance of fixing people who don't want to be fixed, and instead investing in those who are willing to walk the path of growth. It means not mistaking pity for love, or drama for depth. It means refusing to shrink yourself so others won't feel insecure in your light. This isn't about arrogance or judgment. It's about clarity. If someone repeatedly chooses chaos, deceit, or self-sabotage, and refuses every opportunity to change, it's okay to step back. You're not responsible for their life. And staying close to those who consistently ignore truth, avoid responsibility, or resent your progress is not loyalty. It's self-abandonment. Real friends are rare. They're not the people who just say what you want to hear, or agree with you no matter what. They're the ones who tell you the truth, even when it's hard, and who stick around after they've said it. They challenge your worst instincts and cheer on your best efforts. They walk beside you, not because they need something from you, but because they believe in the person you're becoming. Making better friendships might mean letting go of old ones. That's painful, but not as painful as living year after year surrounded by people who secretly want you to stay small, broken, or stuck. Growth requires pruning, and sometimes saying goodbye is the first step towards saying yes to a better life. So take a look at who you spend your time with. Ask yourself, do they want the best for me? Do I want the best for them? And if the answer is no, consistently, deeply, and without hope of change, it may be time to walk away. Because the people you surround yourself with aren't just companions, they're architects of your future. Choose wisely, and be the kind of friend who makes that choice easier for someone else. Rule 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Modern life makes it incredibly easy to compare. With every scroll, swipe or click, you're exposed to curated snapshots of other people's success, their promotions, relationships, homes, bodies and talents. But these glimpses rarely show the full story. They mask the struggle, the failure and the context. And yet, they quietly convince you that you're behind, broken, or simply not enough. The problem isn't comparison itself, it's where that comparison is aimed. Looking outward and upward can feel inspiring for a moment, but it often turns bitter. There's always someone with more money, more beauty, more influence, more clarity. The gap between where you are and where others seem to be can quickly become a source of shame, and shame paralyzes. But there's a more honest, helpful question to ask. Who were you yesterday? And are you better today, even by a little? Did you do something more skillfully? Were you more patient, more focused, more honest? Did you take one step, however small, in the direction of meaning? Improvement isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Life is not a race against others, it's a journey within your own limits, guided by your own values, and shaped by your own challenges. No one else has lived your life. No one else faces the exact combination of your past, personality, or pain. Measuring yourself against others is like judging a tree by how well it swims. It's not just unfair, it's meaningless. Instead, imagine your life as a long, winding staircase. Every day is another step. Some are steep, some are slippery, some are nearly invisible in the dark, but every upward movement matters. Comparing today's step to yesterday's is the only way to know whether you're moving in the right direction. This mindset shifts your focus from envy to agency. It puts the power back in your hands. Instead of obsessing over what others have achieved, you begin to notice your own growth. Instead of spiraling into despair over how far you have to go, you gain clarity from seeing how far you've come. You start building momentum, not just collecting regrets. There will always be areas in life where others outshine you, and that's okay. It's not your job to be the best at everything. It's your job to be better than you were, to inch closer to your potential, not someone else's, to play your role well, not to steal someone else's script. Sometimes that means setting clearer goals. Sometimes it means letting go of goals that never really belonged to you in the first place. Sometimes it means realizing that progress might not look flashy or dramatic. It might be a single conversation you avoided yesterday, or getting out of bed when your mind begged you to stay down. The internal voice that criticizes and compares is not always your enemy, but it needs direction. Instead of letting it fixate on others, point it inward, toward your past self. Use it to guide improvement, not generate shame. Let it push you to refine your habits, your thinking, your choices, not to punish you for not being someone else. The world will always have people who seem more successful, more talented, more fortunate. But you don't live their lives, you live yours. And that life is not a static object to be judged. It's a process, dynamic, unfolding, and capable of renewal. That process deserves your attention, your care, and your honesty. So take your eyes off the scoreboard, forget the highlight reels, look inward, look backward, then move forward. Your only true competitor is the person you were yesterday. Make that person proud, or at the very least give them something to build on. Rule 5. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Raising a child is one of the most profound responsibilities a person can undertake, but it's also one of the most complex. Children are not born civilized. They come into the world raw, impulsive, and self-centered. That's not a flaw, it's nature. But left unchecked, these traits don't fade with time. They harden. What begins as tantrums in a toddler can evolve into manipulation, entitlement, and defiance in adulthood. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about shaping behaviour so that a child can live successfully in a social world. And that means setting clear boundaries early with calm firmness. A child who doesn't learn how to behave properly will soon find the world pushing back, not with patience, but with rejection. Teachers will lose interest, peers will pull away, strangers will avoid. Life becomes harder, lonelier, and more painful than it needs to be. If you dislike your child's behaviour but fail to correct it, that resentment will grow. You'll become irritated, then exhausted, then ashamed of your irritation. Eventually that frustration may leak out in anger, or worse, in cold distance. The irony is painful. Parents who avoid confrontation because they want to be liked by their children often end up liking their children less. Children test limits because they need to know where the edges are. If those limits are vague or inconsistent, they become anxious and confused. They crave structure, not chaos, even if they protest it. The child who gets away with everything is not happy. They're lost, and they know it. A world without boundaries is not freedom. It's terror. Loving your child means being willing to say no, not harshly, not cruelly, but clearly and consistently. It means rewarding good behaviour and calmly correcting bad behaviour, not once, but as often as needed. It means remembering that short-term peace, bought by giving in, often leads to long-term suffering, for both the child and the parent. Modern parents often feel torn between being authoritative and being permissive, but there's a middle ground, being a firm, fair guide. A child is not a peer. A parent is not a friend, at least not at first. The parent is the one with the map, the one responsible for preparing the child for a world that won't always forgive missteps. Too often, children grow up thinking the rules don't apply to them, not because they're bad, but because no one enforced those rules when it mattered most. By the time the world enforces them, it's far less gentle. Society does not tolerate endless boundary pushing. It punishes it, often brutally, in ways that no parent ever would. Proper discipline is not oppressive. It's protective. It teaches a child how to navigate relationships, manage emotions, and handle disappointment. It shows them that actions have consequences and that other people's needs and boundaries are real. This is how empathy begins. This is how character is formed. If a child doesn't learn to control themselves, someone else will, and that someone else might not care about their future. Parents must be the first line of correction, not to stifle a child, but to give them the best chance at becoming someone others want to be around, someone they themselves can respect. Children are sensitive to whether their parents enjoy being around them. They can feel it. And if that enjoyment fades due to unchecked behaviour, the message becomes one of rejection, even if nothing is said aloud. The child learns that something is wrong, but not how to fix it. They internalise blame without guidance. But there's an alternative. Through attentive, firm and loving discipline, a child can become someone who is a joy to raise, someone who brings pride rather than strain. That outcome isn't accidental. It takes work, honesty, and a willingness to confront problems when they're small. But the payoff lasts a lifetime. So guide your child early. Speak clearly, correct gently but firmly, reward what you want to see more of, say no when it matters, and do it not out of anger, but out of care, because the world will judge your child. The question is whether you'll help them prepare for it, or leave them to face it unready. Rule 6. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Life can be cruel. It brings suffering, injustice, and chaos without warning or explanation. Tragedy strikes indiscriminately. The loss of a loved one, a devastating diagnosis, betrayal by someone trusted. When pain arrives, especially when it feels senseless, the natural instinct is to ask, why? Why this? Why me? And in that question, a deeper temptation arises, to blame the world, to rage at its unfairness, or even to wish for its destruction. But blaming everything outside of yourself leads nowhere. It's a seductive trap, one that fuels bitterness, resentment, and despair. It says, the world is broken, and until it changes, there's no point in trying. That belief might feel justified in moments of grief, but over time it hardens into a corrosive worldview, and from there, the slide into nihilism or destructive ideologies begins. History offers dark proof of this descent. Some of the most violent ideologies, political, religious, or otherwise, have been fueled by people who believed the world needed to be torn down because it had treated them unfairly. But the results were never renewal, only bloodshed, tyranny, and more suffering. When pain becomes justification for hate, it doesn't purify the world, it poisons it. Yet there is another path, a quieter, harder one, to turn inward and ask what can be fixed, what can be improved, what can be faced with honesty and courage. It begins with a simple but demanding question. Am I taking care of what I can take care of? Not the entire world, just my corner of it. That means examining your habits, your routines, your relationships. Are you speaking the truth or hiding behind lies? Are you acting in ways you respect or quietly undermining yourself? Are you treating those around you with decency or with quiet cruelty? Before demanding justice from the world, have you created it in your own life? Setting your house in order isn't about perfection. It's about taking responsibility, even in the face of tragedy. Especially in the face of tragedy. It means refusing to let your pain make you cruel. It means recognizing that while you may not be to blame for what happened to you, you are responsible for what happens next. That distinction changes everything. Grief can break you, or it can awaken something deeper. The choice lies in what you do with it. Even when life has been deeply unfair, you still have agency. You can still decide not to pass on the pain. You can still choose to bring a little more order to the chaos, in your room, your relationships, your actions. This doesn't mean ignoring injustice or staying silent in the face of evil, but it means building a foundation first. If your own life is in disarray, your criticism of the world carries little weight. But if you've confronted your own darkness, cleaned up your daily habits, made amends where possible, and chosen integrity over resentment, then your words have power. Then your protest is rooted in truth. People are strongest when they take full responsibility for the small parts of life they can control. Clean your room, pay your debts, tell the truth, help your neighbour. If you can't bring peace to your own household, how can you claim to bring it to the world? The house doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be honest, it has to be tended to, it has to be yours. In that effort, humble, disciplined and ongoing, you regain your strength. You discover that meaning doesn't come from blaming others. It comes from standing upright and choosing order over chaos, day after day. So before pointing fingers, before shouting into the void, ask, have I put my own life in order? If not, start there, because that act alone is a step toward healing, not just for you, but for everyone around you. and it might just be the first real contribution to making the world better instead of worse. Rule 7. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. Life is filled with suffering. That is an unavoidable truth. Pain, disappointment, and struggle are woven into the fabric of existence. The question isn't whether hardship will come, it's how you'll respond when it does. And in that response lies the difference between a life that collapses under pressure and one that rises above it. The temptation is to look for shortcuts, to chase what is easy, convenient, or immediately gratifying. Expedience promises relief, a quick fix, a way around responsibility, a way to avoid discomfort, but it comes at a cost. When you choose the expedient path again and again, life slowly becomes hollow. You get what you wanted, but you lose what mattered. Meaning is different. It doesn't offer quick rewards or guaranteed comfort, but it provides something deeper, a reason to bear suffering with dignity, a path forward when everything seems dark. Meaning comes from taking responsibility, from aiming at what is valuable, not just what is easy. It emerges when you align your actions with your highest values, even when the payoff is uncertain. In ancient stories, meaning is often tied to sacrifice. To bring about something better, something must be given up. Time, effort, comfort, ego. Something must be placed on the altar. The idea of sacrifice isn't about punishment, it's about trade. Giving up what is lesser for what is greater. The future is always shaped by what we are willing to give up in the present. Expedience avoids sacrifice. It says, do what feels good now. Worry about the consequences later. But the consequences always come. They pile up quietly until life becomes a maze of regrets and missed opportunities. The path of meaning is harder at first. It demands patience, discipline, and integrity, but it leads somewhere real. Choosing meaning means choosing what you know, deep down, is right, even when it's inconvenient. It means telling the truth, when a lie would be easier. It means staying loyal, when betrayal might offer an advantage. It means working hard even when no one is watching. It means holding your ground even when you feel afraid. Meaning transforms suffering. It doesn't erase pain, but it gives that pain a purpose. And purpose is what keeps people going when everything else falls away. Expedience might feel good in the moment, but it leaves you weaker in the long run. Meaning makes you stronger, more resilient, and more prepared for life's inevitable storms. The pursuit of meaning requires aiming at something beyond yourself, something worth the effort. That might be your family, your work, your community, your faith. It might be the person you could become if you gave your full effort. But whatever it is, it must be something you believe in enough to sacrifice for. And as you pursue meaning, you grow. You become someone others can rely on. Someone who can shoulder responsibility without complaint. Someone who can help repair what's broken, not just in their own life, but in the lives of others too. The world is full of suffering, but it is also full of people who carry that suffering with grace, because they have chosen meaning over ease. Their lives are not without struggle, but they are rich, steady, and grounded. That is available to anyone, not through luck, but through choice. So when faced with the crossroads, when you must choose between what's easy and what's meaningful, pause. Ask not what will bring the fastest reward, but what will bring the deepest peace. Then take the harder road, because in the long run, that road is the only one worth walking. Rule 8. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Honesty is not just a moral virtue, it's a survival tool. Speaking the truth, even when it's difficult, keeps you grounded in reality, and reality is the only place where genuine growth, connection, and transformation can happen. Lies, even small ones, pull you away from that foundation. They create distance between who you are and who you pretend to be. Over time, that gap becomes unbearable. People often lie to avoid conflict or to gain favour. They twist the truth to avoid embarrassment, delay consequences, or fit into a narrative that feels safer. But every lie, no matter how subtle, creates a fracture, not only in relationships, but in the self. To lie is to say, I will manipulate the world instead of facing it. And while that may work temporarily, the long-term result is confusion, isolation, and inner weakness. Living truthfully is not the same as blurting out every opinion or fact that crosses your mind. It's not about being blunt or harsh. It's about aligning your words with what you genuinely believe, and refusing to say things you know are false. That's harder than it sounds. It requires attention, courage, and a willingness to risk short-term discomfort for long-term integrity. When you lie, especially to yourself, you lose track of where you are. You start to shape your life around illusions. You act in ways that no longer match your beliefs, and eventually your identity becomes unclear. You stop knowing what you want, who you trust, or what you're even aiming for. You become a stranger to yourself. The habit of truth-telling is not about moral superiority, it's about stability. If your life is built on lies, about your relationship, your work, your values, it will eventually collapse. It has to. The truth always surfaces, and when it does, the longer you've lied, the harder the fall. Speaking the truth often means standing alone. It may disrupt friendships, threaten security, or challenge authority. But silence, when it conceals what needs to be said, is its own form of betrayal. Not only to others, but to your own soul. Over time, withheld truths become heavy. They press down on the body and mind, creating resentment, fatigue, and a sense of living out of sync. On the other hand, choosing honesty, even quietly, even imperfectly, brings clarity. It simplifies life. It clears the fog. Truth-telling invites better decisions, deeper relationships, and a sense of alignment between the inner world and the outer one. When you speak honestly, even in uncertainty, you become someone others can trust, and someone you can trust too. This doesn't mean you must reveal everything, or that your understanding of truth will always be complete. Sometimes all you can do is refuse to speak what you know to be false. That alone is a form of integrity. That alone keeps the door open to clarity, understanding, and progress. The road of truth is narrow and demanding, but it's the only road that leads somewhere real. It invites hardship, but it also offers peace. The kind that comes from knowing you're not hiding, not pretending, and not trapped in your own falsehoods. So tell the truth, or, if you cannot yet do that, don't lie. It's a start. It's a foundation, and from there, everything else can be rebuilt. Rule 9. Assume that the person you're listening to might know something you don't. Conversation is not just a way to pass time. It's one of the most powerful tools we have for growth, learning, and connection. But real conversation requires humility. It means approaching the other person not as someone to defeat, correct, or impress, but as someone who might hold a piece of the puzzle you're missing. Too often people enter conversations with a fixed agenda. They wait for their turn to speak, eager to deliver their opinion or win the argument. But in doing so, they miss the chance to hear something new, to let their own views be sharpened, challenged, or expanded. True listening is rare because it requires the courage to be changed. Every person you meet knows something you don't. They've lived a different life, made different mistakes, seen different corners of the world. Even if you disagree with them, they carry experience and insight that you do not. And if you're willing to genuinely listen, you may discover something unexpected, not just about them, but about yourself. Listening is not passive. It's an active process of attention, curiosity, and openness. It means asking honest questions. It means resisting the urge to interrupt. It means staying present, even when the conversation becomes uncomfortable. And it means entertaining the possibility that your current view might be incomplete. Good listening doesn't just help you learn, it helps the speaker learn too. Often, people don't fully understand what they think until they hear themselves say it. In being listened to carefully, they refine their ideas, they clarify their emotions, they become better thinkers, and in doing so, they also teach you more than they could have with a rehearsed monologue. This process becomes especially important during disagreement. In a polarized world, it's easy to write off those who think differently. But if you assume the other person is simply ignorant, evil, or stupid, you stop listening. And when you stop listening, you stop growing. Genuine understanding doesn't mean agreeing, it means making the effort to see clearly. Sometimes, of course, people say things that are false, misguided, or harmful. But even then, it's worth asking, why do they think that? What truth are they trying, however poorly to discern, to express? What experience are they speaking from? This kind of engagement doesn't weaken your position. It strengthens your understanding of both the issue and the person. To listen well, you must be willing to be surprised. You must treat your own ideas as works in progress, not finished monuments. That mindset transforms conversations from battles into explorations. It makes dialogue more than a performance. It makes it a journey. And it's not just intellectual. When someone truly listens to you, when they lean in, stay quiet, and take your words seriously, you feel it. You feel seen, understood, respected. To offer that to someone else is a gift. And it's a gift that often returns tenfold, not just in wisdom, but in connection. So next time you find yourself in conversation, pause. Ask yourself, am I really listening? Am I open to learning something new? Not just about the topic, but about this person and about myself. Assume they might know something you don't, because they probably do, and if you listen well enough, you just might find it. Rule 10. Be precise in your speech. Clarity is power. When your words are vague, your world becomes vague. Problems remain hidden, feelings stay unexamined, and confusion creeps in. But when you speak with precision, when you name what is wrong, describe what you need, and state what you believe, you bring order to chaos. You make the invisible visible, and the unmanageable manageable. Life is filled with complexity, and it's tempting to blur over the details. You might say you're stressed without naming the real cause. A toxic job, a failing relationship, a growing sense of regret. You might say you're fine when you're not, because articulating what's wrong feels overwhelming or embarrassing. But that lack of precision has consequences. What you don't name controls you. What you avoid festers in the dark. The act of speaking clearly forces you to think clearly. You must identify what's bothering you, where it hurts, what needs to change. That process is uncomfortable, but necessary. When problems are described in exact terms, solutions can begin to take shape. Until then, they remain shadowy, and fear grows. This applies not only to personal problems, but also to goals, values, and relationships. If you can't say what you want, others can't help you. If you can't explain your boundaries, they'll be crossed. If you can't define what matters to you, you'll drift, pushed by circumstance instead of guided by intention. Precision is not about pedantry. It's about honesty. It's the willingness to say, this is what I mean, and this is what I don't. It's about describing reality as it is, not as you wish it were, or as you fear it might be. That takes courage, because once you name the problem, you're responsible for addressing it. But there's freedom in that responsibility. Once you describe the monster under the bed, you can begin to deal with it. Until then, it remains a nameless, paralyzing fear. When children imagine a terrifying shape in the dark, Turning on the light reveals it for what it is: a coat on a chair, a shadow on the wall. Adults are no different. Our unspoken anxieties loom large, but when examined closely, many shrink into something we can handle. Relationships thrive on clear communication. Misunderstandings arise not because people are malicious, but because they often don't say exactly what they mean. Precision prevents resentment. It builds trust. It allows conflicts to be addressed directly before they spiral into something more damaging. In a culture that often rewards performance over authenticity, vague speech can feel safer, but it's a safety that erodes strength. It keeps you distant from others and from yourself. To speak precisely is to reveal what you really think, feel, and need. It's vulnerable, but it's also how real connection begins. This doesn't mean being brutally blunt or emotionally cold. Precision can be kind, it can be warm. It means choosing your words thoughtfully, not hiding behind them. It means saying what you mean, and meaning what you say. So when you're facing uncertainty, start with your words. What exactly is the problem? What specifically do you want to happen? Who is responsible for what? What do you fear? What do you hope? The more clearly you can answer, the more power you gain over your situation. Speak precisely, not just for others to understand you, but so that you can understand yourself. Because in a world full of noise and ambiguity, clarity is an act of courage, and it's a step toward a life lived with intention, honesty, and meaning. Rule 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. Risk is a part of life, and especially a part of growing up. Children and adolescents seek out challenge, danger, and even pain, not because they are reckless, but because they are learning where their limits are. They're testing the world and themselves. It's through this testing that confidence grows, resilience develops, and identity takes shape. When kids are skateboarding down handrails or climbing too high or racing without helmets, they're not just looking for a thrill. They're exploring courage. They're proving to themselves that they can face fear and survive. These moments, as chaotic and nerve-wracking as they may seem to adults, are where strength is born. Too much protection can be just as damaging as too little. When children are constantly shielded from danger, they don't learn how to deal with it. When adults rush in to soften every blow, prevent every fall, or correct every misstep, the message is clear. You can't handle this. That message, repeated enough times, becomes internalized, and over time, it weakens the spirit. Boys in particular often struggle under this pressure. In a world that increasingly distrusts aggression, competitiveness, or boldness, natural male impulses can be labelled as dangerous or wrong. But the energy that drives young boys to fight, climb, or compete isn't inherently bad. It's raw potential, and like fire, it must be channeled, not extinguished. When society suppresses those traits without offering a path to transform them into discipline, competence, or leadership, boys are left adrift. They're told not to be aggressive, but not taught how to be strong. They're told to be sensitive, but not shown how to be courageous. The result is confusion, resentment, or apathy, and sometimes rebellion. Children, boys and girls, need to confront the real world. They need to fall down, scrape their knees, and get back up. They need to fail and try again. These aren't moments to be avoided. They're the very things that prepare them for life's much bigger challenges. Resilience doesn't come from safety. It comes from adversity overcome. Adults must resist the urge to eliminate all risk. Instead, they must distinguish between reckless endangerment and meaningful challenge. Let the kids skateboard. Let them build ramps, climb trees, argue with friends, and solve their own problems when they can. Let them stretch themselves, because that's where character is forged. There is a quiet war being waged against strength, not brute strength, but moral strength, personal responsibility, and the willingness to face difficulty. That war shows up in overregulation, in ideologies that treat competence as oppression, and in systems that punish excellence. The instinct may be well-meaning, to level the playing field, to protect the vulnerable, but the effect can be stifling. True equality doesn't mean making everyone the same. It means giving everyone the chance to rise as high as they're willing to climb, but climbing requires risk. It requires the possibility of failure, and that possibility is what makes success meaningful. Letting children face risk is an act of faith that they are capable, and that they will grow stronger through the struggle. It's also a recognition that life is dangerous, and no amount of padding or shielding can change that. Better to prepare children to confront the world as it is than to pretend the world will be gentle. So when you see kids doing something bold, something hard, something a little dangerous, pause before stopping them. Ask whether they're really in harm's way, or just becoming more capable. If they're testing themselves, learning limits, or growing courage, let them be. Because what they're doing is not just play, it's practice for a future that won't wait, and a life that will demand their full strength. Rule 12. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. Life is unpredictable. Suffering arrives unannounced, often without reason or mercy. Illness, loss, and grief find everyone eventually. And when they do, they can bring even the strongest person to their knees. In moments like these, the world feels overwhelming. The weight of pain, uncertainty, and helplessness can make it hard to breathe, let alone hope. When faced with deep suffering, the instinct is to search for meaning or to rage at the injustice of it all. But sometimes there is no clear explanation. Sometimes the only path forward is to look closely at the small, quiet moments that offer brief pockets of peace. A child's laughter, sunlight on the floor, the stillness of an early morning, or a friendly cat on the sidewalk. These moments may seem trivial in the face of great pain, but they matter. They remind you that even amid sorrow, beauty exists, that even during heartbreak, something gentle can break through. These are the tiny anchors that keep you connected to life when everything else feels like it's falling apart. To pet a cat when you encounter one on the street is not just literal advice. It's a symbol, a reminder to slow down and pay attention to what is still good, even when so much has gone wrong. It's about noticing, even in grief, the parts of life that remain intact, the things that don't fix the pain but ease it for a moment. When someone you love is suffering, when life feels like it's unravelling, the instinct is often to focus solely on the crisis, to live entirely inside the pain. But living there permanently is unsustainable. Without small rests, the soul breaks down. Taking time to notice beauty, to engage with the ordinary, is not a betrayal of grief. It's how healing begins. There is courage in continuing, in waking up, in showing up, in enduring. But there is also wisdom in rest, in finding relief where you can, in letting moments of calm wash over you no matter how brief. These are not distractions, they are survival tools. Suffering can make the world seem like a place of only darkness, but that is never the full truth. Light still flickers in the corners, and often it's found in the simplest places. A shared joke, a kind gesture, a pet curled up on a sunny step. This way of living doesn't require denying pain. It asks instead that you carry it carefully, while still making space for small joys. It means allowing yourself to smile even when you're broken. It means granting yourself permission to feel comfort, even as you mourn. When facing what feels unbearable, don't look too far ahead. The horizon can be too heavy. Instead, take things moment by moment, breath by breath. And let the moments of peace, however fleeting, remind you that life, even in suffering, still has something to offer. So if you come across a cat on the street, stop, pay attention, kneel down if you can, feel the softness of its fur, the warmth of its body, the lightness of the moment. Let it anchor you, not away from the pain, but gently within the world that still turns. Because even in the darkest times there is value in staying open. Open to the good, open to the ordinary, open to life, however fragile it may feel. That openness, humble, quiet and present, is a kind of grace, and sometimes that's enough. Coda, there is more to life than rules. Rules offer structure. They create order from chaos, set boundaries, and provide guidance. But at their best, rules are not ends in themselves. They are tools, and tools must never replace the spirit that wields them. Life is not a game of rigid obedience. It's a complex living thing, a dance between discipline and spontaneity, between order and chaos, between what is known and what is yet to be discovered. The 12 rules laid out across this journey are not meant to be cold commandments. They are principles drawn from hard-earned truths, grounded in myth, psychology, suffering and survival. But even they must be held lightly, because life refuses to be fully tamed. There will always be times when rules fall short, when love demands flexibility, when tragedy defies logic, when the heart knows something the mind has yet to catch up to. What ultimately matters most is not following rules perfectly, but becoming the kind of person who can meet the complexity of life with strength, honesty, and grace. Someone who strives for what is meaningful over what is convenient. Someone who speaks truth, bears responsibility, seeks beauty, and chooses courage, not because the rules say so, but because something deeper compels them. There is a reason so much of this journey has revolved around the tension between chaos and order. Too much order and life becomes sterile, oppressive, and closed. Too much chaos and it becomes destructive, overwhelming and incoherent. But in between, right at the edge, is the space where life becomes most alive. That's where creativity lives. That's where love grows. That's where meaning reveals itself. Living well is not about mastering every rule. It's about learning to walk that edge with open eyes and a willing heart, to take responsibility for your part in the world, to recognize that suffering is real. But so is the possibility of redemption, to know that while life is full of pain, it is also filled with glimpses of the divine, in music, in laughter, in resilience, in connection. And ultimately it's about faith, not necessarily in religion, but in the belief that life, even at its most difficult, is still worth living. That there is something sacred in the struggle, something noble in the attempt to do good, something heroic in standing up again and again despite it all. The rules are a place to start, but they are not the destination. The real path begins when you embody their spirit, when you live not just by law, but by love, by courage, and by the quiet determination to make your life and the world around you better, even a little better, day by day. That is enough, and it is everything. Thank you for spending part of your evening with us here at the Sleepless Library. We hope these quiet reflections brought you a little peace and helped you drift a bit closer to rest.